Shattered illusions. Elena Vasquez straightened the collar of her midnight blue dress for the 5th time in as many minutes. Tonight was supposed to be the crowning achievement of her career. The opening of her curated exhibition fractured perspectives at the prestigious Hawthorne Gallery. Instead, the butterflies in her stomach felt more like wasps. He's just running late, she whispered to herself, checking her phone again. No messages from James, her fiancé of 11 months. Strange, considering he was never late for anything, especially something this important to her. The gallery buzzed with San Francisco's art elite, glasses clinking as critics and collectors admired the avant-garde pieces she'd spent 18 months assembling. Even director Hawthorne seemed pleased, nodding approvingly as he guided a potential investor through the exhibition. "Elena, darling, this is extraordinary." Olivia Martinez, her former professor and mentor, embraced her. "You've outdone yourself. Where's that handsome fiancé of yours? I want to congratulate him on having such a brilliant partner." Elena's smile faltered. "He's on his way," she hoped. The truth was, things had been strained with James recently, since his investment firm, Kingsford Capital, had lost a major client to Montgomery Innovations. He'd been distant, working late hours and barely engaging when they were together. She'd attributed it to stress, but tonight's absence felt pointed. Her phone buzzed finally, but instead of James's face, a news notification appeared. Kingsford CEO James Wellington spotted with software errors at airport. Romance rumors swirl. The accompanying photos showed James, with his arm wrapped intimately around Veronica Townsend, kissing her forehead at SFO's international terminal. Elena's hand trembled as she tapped the article. Wellington 34, who was reportedly engaged to art curator Elena Vasquez, appears to have moved on with Townsend, 26, daughter of Townsend Software's founder. Sources close to Wellington confirmed the engagement has ended. The room tilted. The engagement had ended. This was how he was telling her. "Elena." Olivia's concerned voice seemed distant. "What's wrong?" Before she could respond, the gallery doors opened. James strode in, not alone but with Veronica herself, both looking polished and untouchable. The audacity stole Elena's breath. He'd brought her here, to Elena's moment. Their eyes met across the room. No remorse flickered in his expression, only cool assessment, as if measuring her reaction for future reference. "I need to address this," Elena muttered, moving toward them despite Olivia's warning hand on her arm. "James," she said when she reached them, her voice surprisingly steady, "I see congratulations are in order." He had the decency to look briefly uncomfortable. "Elena, you look well. Your exhibition seems ... interesting." "Interesting enough that you brought a date to it?" she asked quietly. "Or did you simply want to make sure I got the message?" "Don't be dramatic," he said, lowering his voice. "We've been drifting apart for months. This is just ... expedient." Veronica shifted, looking bored rather than embarrassed. Several phones were now pointed their way. Staff, guests, even a cultural blogger Elena recognized. "Expedient," Elena repeated, "like publicly humiliating me at my career milestone." "Public is your arena, not mine," he replied coolly. "I've made my choice. Montgomery's taken enough from me. I won't let him have Townsend Software too. This merger is happening, with or without your emotional scenes." The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't about love, it was business strategy. She had simply become collateral damage in his corporate chess match against Gabriel Montgomery, his long-standing rival by morning. Elena's tearful confrontation was trending on social media. #GalleryGate and #Curators Despair accompanied clips of her face crumpling as James walked away, Veronica smugly in tow, her professional triumph completely overshadowed by her personal devastation. Elena scrolled through the comments, each one a fresh wound, until her phone died. Much like her dreams of the future she'd planned with James *, an expected encounter 3 weeks after the gallery disaster, Elena found refuge in the quiet corner of Lighthouse Cafe, a small establishment nestled between touristy shops on the Imba. The cafe's weathered wooden tables and view of the bay offered solace from the incessant notifications and sympathetic glances that had become her daily torment. "1 lavender honey, latte and raspberry scone," said the barista, setting down Elena's order. "And hey, for what it's worth, that Wellington guy seems like a real jerk." Elena managed a weak smile. "Thanks, but I'd rather not talk about it." The viral humiliation had made her recognizable even to coffee shop strangers, another unexpected consequence of James's cruelty. She opened her laptop, determined to lose herself in work. The gallery had been surprisingly supportive, extending her exhibition after the publicity brought in record crowds, people drawn by scandal staying for the art. "Small mercies, is this seat taken?" Elena looked up to find a man gesturing to the chair across from her, tall, with warm brown skin and eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners. He wore a simple gray Henley and jeans that somehow looked tailored on his athletic frame. His most striking feature was his smile, genuine and a touch hesitant. "It's all yours," Elena replied, gesturing to the empty chair before returning to her screen. The last thing she needed was conversation with a stranger. "Thanks." He settled in with a book and a black coffee, saying nothing more. Alina tried to focus on her email to a potential artist for her next exhibition, but found herself stealing glances at her table companion. There was something vaguely familiar about him, though she couldn't place it. His focus on his book, A Biography of Georgia O'Keeffe, seemed absolute, his long fingers occasionally tracing underlined passages. After 20 minutes of comfortable silence punctuated only by the cafe's ambient noise, he spoke again. "Sorry to interrupt, but are you by any chance the curator of Fractured Perspectives?" Alina tensed. "Here it comes." "I am." To her surprise, no mention of the scandal followed. Instead, his expression brightened. The juxtaposition of Daniel's industrial photographs against Nomura's textile installations was inspired. The dialogue between manufactured precision and handcrafted imperfection really resonated with me. Alina blinked, caught off guard by his genuine artistic observation. "You've seen the exhibition?" "3 times, he admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. Each visit revealed something new, particularly in the transition room with the projections. "How did you convince Ramirez to adapt her work for that space? She's notoriously protective of her installations." For the first time in weeks, Alina felt a flutter of professional pride replace the constant ache of humiliation. "It took 6 months of conversations. I showed her the space at different times of day, how the natural light affected the room. Eventually, she saw the potential for her work to breathe differently there." They fell into an easy conversation about contemporary art, his knowledge impressive without being pretentious. He introduced himself simply as Gabe, offering no last name or profession beyond mentioning that he worked in technology. Alina found herself relaxing, grateful for interaction that had nothing to do with her personal life. "What are you working on now?" he asked after they'd debated the merits of digital art preservation for nearly an hour. "A new exhibition focused on technological innovation through artistic interpretation," she said, surprising herself with the admission. The concept had been merely a seedling in her mind, not yet shared with anyone. Artists responding to how technology shapes human connection for better or worse. His eyes lit up. "That sounds fascinating. Have you considered incorporating actual tech elements? Not just representations of technology, but using it as medium, like interactive installations?" "Beyond that," he said, leaning forward, "what if visitors could see how their engagement with the art creates data patterns, or artwork that evolves based on collective interaction?" Alina felt a spark of inspiration she hadn't experienced since before the breakup. That could be powerful, making visible the invisible ways we're connected through technology. "I might know some people who could help with the technical aspects," Gabe offered, then quickly added, "if you're interested." Of course, when he pulled out a small notebook rather than a phone to exchange contact information, Alina found the gesture oddly charming. His handwriting was precise as he noted her email address. "I should get going," he said, glancing at his watch, "but I'd love to continue this conversation. Maybe I could send you some research on responsive environments that might inspire your exhibition concept." "I'd like that," Alina replied, surprised to find she meant it. As he gathered his things, a text notification flashed across her laptop screen, another tabloid alert mentioning James and Veronica's engagement announcement. Alina's smile faltered. Gabe noticed the change. "Everything okay? Just work," she lied, quickly dismissing the notification. He studied her for a moment, his expression softening with what looked like understanding rather than pity. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "sometimes the most beautiful art comes from navigating our fractures." After he left, Alina found a business card tucked under her saucer. It simply read Gabriel with an email address and a company name or position. Only later that evening, while researching interactive art installations, did she stumble upon a photo that made her coffee mug freeze halfway to her lips. There on her screen was Gabriel Montgomery, founder of Montgomery Innovations and James Wellington's most formidable business rival. The man she'd just spent 2 hours talking with was worth billions and had never once hinted at his identity or connection to her ex. Fiancée Elena wasn't sure whether to feel intrigued or manipulated. Either way, the email he'd promised arrived minutes later, filled with thoughtful resources for her exhibitions, signed simply, "Looking forward to our next conversation. G. **. Rising from ashes, the Montgomery Innovations building loomed before Elena, a gleaming testament to architectural innovation with its curved glass facade that seemed to ripple like water in the morning light. She checked her visitor's pass for the 3rd time, still questioning her decision to accept Gabriel's invitation to see something that might inspire your exhibition. After discovering his true identity 2 weeks ago, Elena had almost deleted his email without responding. Was this some elaborate scheme in his ongoing rivalry with James? Yet his subsequent messages had been nothing but professional, thoughtful references to artists exploring the intersection of technology and human experience. No mention of her ex-fiancé, Miss Vasquez. A sleek assistant greeted her in the lobby. "Mr. Montgomery is waiting for you in the innovation lab." Elena followed her through security checkpoints into an elevator that required Gabriel's personal authorization. As they ascended to the 37th floor, she straightened her burgundy blazer, grateful she'd chosen something that made her feel confident. The elevator opened directly into a vast space, unlike anything Elena had imagined. Instead of the sterile tech environment she expected, the innovation lab resembled an artist's dream studio. Natural light poured through skylights onto workstations where people in casual clothing manipulated holographic displays, molded strange materials, and huddled around prototypes that defied easy categorization. Alina Gabriel appeared, dressed much like the day they'd met, simple clothes that somehow looked expensive on him. "Thank you for coming. This isn't what I expected," she admitted. He smiled. "Most people assume we're all coding in dark rooms. The truth is, innovation lives at the intersection of disciplines. We have engineers working alongside artists, philosophers collaborating with programmers. Come, there's something specific I want to show you." As they walked through the lab, Gabriel introduced her to several team members, without ever indicating she was anyone special, just a curator with interesting ideas. The respect with which his employees treated him was evident, yet there was none of the fearful deference she'd observed among James's staff. To stopped at a circular platform where a young woman with vibrant blue hair was adjusting what looked like a delicate glass sculpture. "Prisa, would you show Alina your emotional resonance installation?" Gabriel asked. Prisha's face lit up. "Of course, it's still in development, but..." She activated a control panel, and the glass sculpture began to emit a soft glow. "Step closer, both of you." As Alina approached, the colors in the sculpture shifted. Warm amber where she stood, cool blue near Gabriel, reads micro-expressions and subtle physiological signs. Prisha explained, "The installation doesn't just display your current emotional state, it creates a visual representation of the emotional interplay between people in its vicinity." Where Alina's amber met Gabriel's blue, the glass produced beautiful gradient patterns, shifting and evolving as they moved. "The technology has practical applications in therapeutic settings," Gabriel added, "but we believe its greatest potential might be artistic." Alina circled the installation, transfixed. "This is exactly the kind of dialogue between technology and human experience I want to explore in my exhibition." "That's why I wanted you to see it," Gabriel said. "Prisha's agreed to adapt a version for your show, if you're interested." "Are you serious?" Alina looked between them. "This would be incredible." After exploring several more innovations in textiles that responded to touch and an immersive sound, the environment that translated movement into music, they ended up in Gabriel's office, a surprisingly comfortable space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. "These collaborations could transform my exhibition concept," Alina said, reviewing her notes. "But why are you doing this? Montgomery Innovations doesn't typically partner with art galleries." Gabriel considered her question carefully. "I believe technology without humanity is just machinery. Art helps people see themselves in innovation, makes it accessible." He paused. "And I admire your vision, your resilience." The unspoken reference to a public humiliation hung between them. Alina set down her notebook. "Did you approach me because of James?" His expression remained open. "I knew who you were when we met at the cafe."
"Yes."
"Your exhibition was receiving attention even before the ... incident, but I didn't plan our meeting, and now..." She pressed. "Is this about your rivalry with him?" "No," Gabriel said firmly. "Whatever history exists between James and me is separate from this. I'm interested in your work, Alina, full stop." Something in his direct gaze convinced her. Over the next month, their professional relationship blossomed into genuine friendship. Alina visited the innovation lab regularly, working with Gabriel's team to develop interactive pieces for her exhibition, now titled Convergence: When Technology Meets Humanity. The tabloids eventually lost interest in her as James and Veronica's wedding plans dominated the gossip columns. Gradually, Alina reclaimed her narrative, giving interviews focused solely on her innovative upcoming exhibition. The viral humiliation that had defined her began to fade, replaced by recognition for her artistic vision. On a warm evening 6 weeks after their first collaboration, Gabriel invited Alina to dinner at a small seaside restaurant to celebrate your feature in art review, he explained as they watched the sunset from a private balcony overlooking the ocean. The article had praised Alina's pioneering approach to merging technological innovation with artistic expression, highlighting her partnership with Montgomery Innovations without a single mention of James Wellington. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, sipping her wine. "You underestimate yourself," Gabriel replied. "You were already brilliant. I just provided some tools." As they talked about everything from childhood memories to future dreams, Alina realized something had fundamentally shifted. She no longer thought of herself as the woman who had been publicly discarded. Instead, she was a curator on the cutting edge, someone with valuable perspectives and exciting possibilities ahead. When Gabriel's hand brushed hers, as they reached for the same piece of bread, the jolt she felt had nothing to do with her past and everything to do with her present. His smile, warm, slightly crooked, genuinely interested in her words, had become something she looked forward to each day. "The gala opening is next week," Alina said as they walked along the beach after dinner. "Half of San Francisco's tech and art communities will be there, including James and Veronica," Gabriel noted carefully. "Their engagement party is the same weekend." Alina was surprised to realize she'd forgotten. "That doesn't matter anymore," she said, and meant it. "This exhibition represents who I am now, not who I was then." Gabriel stopped walking, turning to face her in the moonlight. "And who are you now?" "Elena Vasquez, someone who turns fractures into foundations," she answered, her voice steady and clear. "Someone ready for whatever comes next." His smile contained something new, a question, a possibility. But before either could speak further, Gabriel's phone buzzed with an emergency from his company, ending the moment but not the promise it held. The grand gesture. The Sutton Museum's grand hall glittered under crystal chandeliers as San Francisco's elite gathered for the opening of Convergence. When technology meets humanity. Elena moved through the crowd in a flowing emerald gown, graciously accepting congratulations while inwardly marveling at how far she'd come in just a few months. Director Hawthorne had already pronounced the exhibition a paradigm shift in interactive art, while tech journalists were praising the innovative collaborations. The centerpiece, Prish's emotional resonance sculpture, now evolved into a room-sized installation where visitors' collective emotional states created an ever-changing symphony of light and color. Had a constant crowd surrounding it. "You've outdone yourself," Olivia Martinez said, embracing Elena from catastrophe to triumph. "I couldn't be prouder." Elena smiled. "Have you seen Gabriel? He was supposed to be here an hour ago." "Your tech knight in shining armor," Olivia teased. "No, but the knight is young." As Elena continued her circuit of the gallery, she noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Whispers spread, phones appeared, and eyes darted between their screens and the entrance. Elena's stomach tightened when she caught a glimpse of familiar blonde hair. James had arrived with Veronica on his arm, both dressed impeccably. Their appearance wasn't entirely unexpected. The exhibition had generated enough buzz that many guests were attending both this opening and their engagement celebration across town. Still, Elena had hoped to avoid a direct encounter. James spotted her immediately, his expression calculating as he whispered something to Veronica before making his way toward Elena. "Impressive turnout," he said, his tone suggesting mild surprise. "Montgomery's involvement certainly opened doors for you." Elena maintained her composure. "The exhibition stands on its own merits." "James, of course," he replied smoothly, though one wonders about his motives. "Montgomery rarely does anything without strategic advantage." He lowered his voice. "I'd hate to see you become another casualty in our ongoing disagreements." Before Elena could respond, the museum director approached the small stage where a string quartet had been playing. The music faded as she tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special presentation this evening. Mr. Gabriel Montgomery would like to say a few words about tonight's extraordinary exhibition." Elena turned in surprise as Gabriel appeared, looking striking in a tailored suit. Their eyes met briefly across the room before he took the stage. "Thank you all for coming tonight to witness something truly remarkable," he began. "What Elena Vasquez has created here isn't just an art exhibition, it's a conversation between what we build and who we are." His genuine admiration was evident as he spoke about specific installations and the vision behind them. Then his tone shifted, becoming more personal. "Many of you know that innovation often begins with disruption, with moments that force us to see possibilities we couldn't imagine before." His gaze found Elena in the crowd. "Sometimes the most beautiful creations emerge from our most challenging moments." A murmur rippled through the audience as Gabriel stepped down from the stage and walked directly to where Elena stood. James watched with narrowed eyes, his arm tightening around Veronica. "Elena," Gabriel said, his voice now carrying through the wireless microphone he still held. "When we met, I was drawn to your artistic vision, your intelligence, your resilience. What I didn't expect was how completely you would transform my understanding of connection, both technological and human." The room fell silent as Gabriel took her hand. "These past months working with you have shown me what true innovation looks like. The courage to reimagine possibility after devastation, to create beauty from broken plans." Elena's heart raced as cameras flashed around them. This moment, undoubtedly being captured for tomorrow's headlines. Gabriel dropped to one knee, still holding her hand. "I hadn't planned this tonight, but seeing you in your element, watching how you've transformed limitation into art, I can't imagine waiting another day to ask Elena Vasquez, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" The collective gasp that swept through the gallery was followed by absolute silence as everyone awaited her answer. From the corner of her eye, Elena saw James's face darken with fury and disbelief, but looking into Gabriel's eyes, Elena saw only sincerity, vulnerability, and love, not calculation or revenge. "This isn't about him, is it?" she whispered too softly for the microphone to catch. Gabriel shook his head slightly. "It never was. It's about us, what we've built, what we could build together." In that moment of perfect clarity, Elena knew the truth. What had begun as an unexpected encounter had evolved into something real and profounder. Connection that transcended both her past humiliation and Gabriel's rivalry with James. "Yes," she answered, her voice strong enough now to be heard throughout the hall. "Yes, Gabriel Montgomery, I will marry you." Applause erupted as Gabriel slipped a stunning emerald ring onto her finger, the same shade as her dress. Evidence he'd been planning this moment longer than he'd admitted. When he rose to embrace her, the The emotional resonance sculpture behind them exploded in a dazzling display of gold and purple light, reflecting their shared joy. James and Veronica had already disappeared by the time reporters converged, eager for comments about the dramatic proposal. By morning, #revenge proposal was trending alongside #convergence exhibition, the public crafting a narrative of sweet retribution that missed the genuine emotion behind the moment. Truth and trust, tech billionaires' ultimate revenge, Montgomery proposes to Wellington's exit gala. Alina read from her tablet, grimacing at the headline. They're calling it the most calculated romantic gesture in Silicon Valley history. 3 days after the proposal, she and Gabriel sat in the sunroom of his Marin County home, the fog rolling over the hills outside while coffee cooled between them. The media storm hadn't abated. If anything, it had intensified as reporters dug into James and Gabriel's long history of corporate rivalry. "Does it bother you?" Gabriel asked, watching her carefully. "That they think I'm just a pawn in your chess match with James?" "A bit," she admitted, "but I know the truth." Gabriel took her hand, his thumb brushing over the emerald ring. "I should have considered the timing better. A private proposal would have spared you this scrutiny." "When have either of us done the expected thing?" Alina smiled, though worry still creased her brow. "But there's something I need to know, Gabriel, the complete truth about you and James. I can't build a future on partial information." Gabriel's expression sobered. He rose, walking to the window before turning back to her. "You deserve that." The story he shared wasn't the straightforward business rivalry portrayed in the press. Gabriel and James had been roommates at Stanford, initially friends, until they co-founded their first startup. While Gabriel focused on innovation, James had secretly negotiated to sell their technology to a competitor, cutting Gabriel out entirely. "The betrayal wasn't just professional," Gabriel explained. "James was engaged to my sister Daniela at the time." Elena's eyes widened. "I had no idea he was previously engaged." "Few people do." When she discovered what he'd done to me, she confronted him. He told her business and relationships were separate spheres, and she should understand his ambition. Gabriel's voice tightened. She broke it off. 6 months later, she was diagnosed with leukemia. "Gabriel, I'm so sorry." She recovered, thankfully. "But watching someone you love realize the person they chose wasn't who they thought, it changes you." He sat beside Alina again. "When I saw what James did to you at the gallery, how publicly he discarded you, it resonated. But I never approached you as some elaborate revenge scheme." "Our meeting at the cafe wasn't coincidental, though," Alina pressed gently. Gabriel shook his head. "I'd seen your exhibition before the scandal. When everything happened, I recognized your name in the headlines. I went to the cafe because you mentioned it in an interview about your creative process. I wanted to offer a collaboration, but I wasn't sure how you'd react given my history with James. So you kept your identity quiet until you knew I'd considered the partnership on its merits," Alina concluded. "Yes, but everything that developed between us was real, Alina. Every conversation, every shared idea, every moment." His eyes held hers, unguarded. "I fell in love with your mind, your resilience, your vision, not with the opportunity to spite James Wellington." Alina believed him. The man she'd come to know these past months was thoughtful and genuine, nothing like the calculating figure portrayed in the tabloids. Before she could respond, her phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. The text contained only a link to a private document. Curious, she opened it, Gabriel watching as her expression changed from confusion to shock. "What is it?" he asked. "Financial documents from Kingsford Capital," she said slowly, showing James diverted investor funds to personal accounts, including money meant for a wedding. She looked up. "This is whistleblower-level information. Why would someone send it to me?" Gabriel's phone buzzed next. His message, from James himself, was chillingly direct. "Call off the engagement charade, or I release evidence showing you orchestrated this entire relationship for corporate espionage. You have 24 hours. "He's bluffing," Gabriel said after showing Alina. "There's no evidence because it's not true, but he's desperate enough to fabricate something," Alina noted. "These financial documents must be legitimate if he's this threatened." They spent the night strategizing, and by morning had reached a decision that felt true to who they were, both individually and together. The press conference they called wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of announcing a wedding date, Alina and Gabriel stood together before cameras and explained they were postponing their engagement not because of James's threats, but to ensure their relationship developed outside the public spectacle it had become. What began in the aftermath of public humiliation shouldn't continue under the shadow of public expectation, Alina told the reporters. "Gabriel and I are choosing to step back from the narrative others have created for us." Gabriel added, "We believe in transparency and integrity, both in business and in love. That means acknowledging when the timing isn't right, even when the feelings are real." They didn't mention the financial documents, which they'd forwarded to the appropriate authorities rather than weaponizing them in the media. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming their own story. 6 months later, as fall painted the Sonoma vineyard in russet and gold, Alina and Gabriel stood hand in hand before a gathering of only their closest friends and family. No cameras documented their vows. No headlines announced their union. Daniela, Gabriel's sister and now Elena's dearest friend, stood as her maid of honor. Prisha had created a small emotional resonance sculpture as their wedding gift, its gentle glow reflecting the peace they'd found together. From public heartbreak to private joy, Gabriel whispered as they shared their first dance under strings of twinkling lights. Quite a convergence. Alina smiled up at him, thinking of the journey that had brought them here. James had eventually faced legal consequences for his financial misdeeds, while Veronica had left him when the Townsend merger collapsed. But that was merely background noise to the life she and Gabriel were building, one based not on reaction to the past, but on creation of the future. The most beautiful things, she replied, echoing words he'd once said to her, often emerge from our most challenging moments. As the evening progressed, Alina found herself standing alone for a moment, watching Gabriel laugh with her parents. The woman who had once gone viral for her tears was now known for her innovative exhibition, currently touring internationally. The heartbreak that had defined her briefly had ultimately revealed her strength, not her vulnerability. Sometimes, she reflected, the most powerful response to public humiliation isn't an equally public triumph, but the quiet certainty of knowing your own worth and being recognized for exactly who you are by someone who sees you clearly. Gabriel caught her eye across the dance floor and smiled, a private question in his expression. Alina moved toward him, leaving the ghosts of headlines and heartbreak behind. Their story wouldn't make tomorrow's news. It didn't need to. It belonged to them alone.